Here we go. It says that meeting is now streamed live on Facebook. Welcome, everybody. I am joined by the wonderful Jacqui today and someone with a similar accent to me for once, which is kind of refreshing. So I'm accustomed to speaking to Morley. And of course, last week we spoke to Robert, who's also in the United States. So welcome, Jacqui. What I will do is I'll just jump on and check that the live stream's doing what it should on my phone, whilst you tell everybody a little bit about you, just whatever you think we need to know in terms of RCP world. And I'll just check the live stream whilst you're doing that. That's okay.
Okay. Yes. So hi, everyone. My name is Jacqui. I trained first with the RCP Institute back in 2017 and have been a root cause protocol consultant since then. I actually retook the training in 2020 because it had evolved a lot since I had taken it. When I took it, it was just a group of like about less than 25 students. It was very different format to what it looks like now. So we definitely didn't have tutorials or assessment. We had a quiz at the end, I think. Yeah. And so yeah, it had looked very different. So I really wanted to just kind of just keep up with my learning. And so I retook the training and then I started working as a tutor. So I've been tutoring for several rounds as well.
Yeah, nice. And so between taking the training in 2017 and then resitting in 2020, were you working as an RCP consultant in that time as well?
Yes, a little bit. I was also, when I took the training, my youngest was only just turned 2. So it was more sort of finding my feet too in terms of family and a few house moves, unexpected house moves. And so I was doing a little bit, but not a lot. So part of taking the training too was just to also help me give my confidence back as well, and that I still knew it and I still had the ability to do it. So
yes, I'm glad you said that, Jacqui, because I think that's a really big part of why, you know, I've been working behind the scenes with the RCP for about the same time as since you took the training. I was a lot more quiet and behind the scenes in the early days. I'm a little bit more public facing with these lives these days, but I see that comment that you've just made kind of come up in different versions a lot, you know, that I just want to resit it and build my confidence back up, or just, you know, revisit the content and you know, that immersion experience. It's like learning a language, isn't it? You know, you could learn Japanese at school like I did, or you could go to Japan for a few months and just like be in the immersive experience, and it just turns the volume up, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And I studied Indonesian all through high school and uni, and then spent a year on exchange in Indonesia. And it's completely different being immersed in it and actually the doing, which is why getting out there and doing it, and why we've encouraged now with the training, there's a focus on really getting the students trained to get out there and to do, like through the intro consult assessment and the way it's arranged. So because you need to actually immerse yourself in it to really be able to think on your feet and to really know that you've got that knowledge to be able to survive, really. Survive, the right word, but you know what I mean. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I wish I studied Indonesian at school. I like, as a side note, I Japanese, obviously, as I mentioned, and I went through into university as well. And it was a great idea in theory, but I honestly should have studied Indonesian, because I have land in a not Bali, 2 islands over from Bali that we're moving to. And so
wow.
a little bit of and I'm like, I wish I had have taken this at school. So I'm coming to you, Jacqui, if I need
It's a very easy language to learn.
It is, isn't it? It's so simple compared to Japanese. And anyway, a little personal digression there.
No worries.
Tangent. All right, well, tell me a little bit about what I'm really curious about, is because neither myself nor Morley can tell us what the tutorials are like, because neither of us are there. Only you, the tutors and the students, are there. Last week, obviously, Robert shared a little insight about his experience with tutorials as a tutor, I should say. You're a tutor, but everyone's different. And I think that's something that is really lovely about the RCP kind of community as a whole, is that we're not cookie cutters of each other, their own journeys and experiences, and they all bring those unique differences to the table. So tell us a little bit about what tutorials look like for people who are in a tutorial group with you.
Sure. So when we start, we usually just start our first tutorial, just introductions, just getting to know everyone, getting to know what's going to happen in the course. I really try to encourage everyone in my group to sort of get on camera from the start and to talk, because it's really intimidating. I think a lot of people find it intimidating. Just coming together with all these people you don't know, even people across the world sometimes, like there's people from different countries. So yeah, so really that's a really big focus of just trying to encourage that, and just to try to build that community really with that tutorial group. So, and it's really lovely to see that unfold as the weeks progress. And yeah, so we start each tutorial, or I start each tutorial with getting everyone to just sort of talk about what they learned that week, what they struggled with, any questions. And we really, that's just how we kick it off. And then you see people's confidence grow, and it's a big process of learning and unlearning. It can be challenging depending on the students that you've got. But I mean, like I say to my students, that we're all from different backgrounds. We've all got something to contribute. We all have insights to bring. So I really just try to encourage that as well. Because I mean, I had a range of students. I had people that were just curious to learn more versus people that had worked in the wellness field, but up to doctors and naturopaths. So really big scope, but really, really amazing people that, you know, bring so much to the tutorials. And yeah, and then we also go through the material that we'd covered that week. And so I just try to help break it down for them a bit, just offering a different perspective, because that is just reinforcing the learning and just, you know, just trying to clarify any questions as well. And then we also do, we do a lot of role play practice, which again, if you study the language, you know how intimidating that can be, but it's so crucial for learning. So yeah, so we usually just get at least one, maybe more if we get time, students to pretend to be the client, another one to pretend to be the consultant, and just get them starting to ask those questions, because the intro consult assessment is really just all about understanding the story of stress and helping them to understand how the RCP can start to help them. So there's no results. We don't use results in that assessment. We work on that later. So so we, right from the start, we're starting to practice and helping them to do that. So there's a lot of coaching through that as we go. So I don't just kind of throw them in the deep end. It's, we coach them through it, and I'll offer support, and just teaching them about different questions they can ask and how they can, if they get stuck. And often as we progress, the students will all sort of jump in and help. And so it's just, that's pretty much how it goes. And then as the tutorials progress, we start to get more into, we look at the results and how to interpret results. So that kind of comes later on in the course. And then we practice again, then with the results, but we just don't have an assessment based around interpreting results.
I love that. And if I can, I'd love to circle back to one of the first things that you said, is that you encourage people to get on camera as early as possible. And I think that it speaks volumes for, I guess, your intention as a tutor, because you could easily go through that program and kind of like hide away and absorb the content. But then at the other end, if you've done that, I suspect that the confidence factor that we've talked about a little bit would then be a little bit harder to engage with people, because most RCPCs, as far as I'm aware, when they do consults, are doing them in this environment where it's camera to camera. It's not belly to belly, you know, sitting in a chair. I mean, there's definitely people who do that. Robert from last week, obviously, there's part of that in his practice, but that skill to be comfortable on camera and, you know, with lots of people looking at you, then means that when only one person is looking at you, I suspect that your nervous system can handle that, so that when they step out the other end of the 16 weeks of the training, their bodies aren't like at the thought of sitting across from somebody. So I really love that you do that, and that you offer that really early on, so that they can, you know, grow into that and find their comfortable space and confidence within that. I think that's really great.
Yeah, and those that do and push through, you can really see that confidence blossom. And because it's nerve-wracking, it's terrifying. I remember when I first did the training, I was terrified. Well, actually it was 5 a.m. for me, and having had a 2-year-old and not getting much sleep, I often didn't just turn my camera on because I looked a wreck. But
I'm a hot mess.
So, but it just, but that can also become like an excuse too, because it's like, oh, well, I don't need to turn my camera on because, and so it's, I think I've learned through personal experience that you really do need to push through that and to be able to overcome that fear, because it is part of being able to conduct a successful business once you finish. So
absolutely, but not everybody comes in to take the learnings and then turn it into business, do they? There's not that's not the goal for everybody. What's your experience based on that in terms of the different kinds of people that come through?
I think everyone engages with the tutorials differently, and which is totally fine. Like I've had students that have engaged even though they're not planning to become a consultant, and I've had so I think it's just different. It's just different how everyone engages it. Those that really make it a priority really seem to get a lot out of it. But I know I had students that couldn't make it but did faithfully watch each recording, and then wish they'd actually had the time to sort of to get on and commit to it. So I think I lost my train of thought there. So,
right.
But so the different people. Yeah. So I mean, that can come out in the discussion sometimes. Just some people can just be really knowledgeable, and then that whole insecurity thing can start to come out. You're like, oh, I don't know as much as them, and you can sort of see that. But I really just try to encourage everyone just to speak up and to talk, because every question is valid. Like there's no such thing as a bad question. So I remember I had a research professor say that to me once, like there's no such thing as a bad question, and it's just always stuck with me because it's true. Like we're all learning, we're on a journey of learning, and I found that everyone in my tutorials, no matter who they were or what background they came from, were really supportive and encouraging, and just really genuinely wanting to help everyone learn. So
I love that. Well, it's like attracting like. It's obviously a reflection of you.
I think
so. So tell us, you talk a little bit about backgrounds there. I'd love to kind of take that and pivot a little bit with it. How did you come to find the RCP? Like, what's your story? How, obviously you had the young, did you say 2-year-old when you came through originally?
Yeah, well, she was my youngest. Yeah. So I've got 5 children. Yeah. Ranging from 17 down to 7.
Yeah.
So So I've always had an interest in sort of natural living, natural approaches to life. So that's ever since I was pregnant with my first, is when I really sort of, and even the year before when I started to think about getting pregnant, started researching, learning more about that, cleaning up my lifestyle, eating, all that sort of stuff. Which, and then, sort of came out in my parenting journey through things like birthing, natural birthing, breastfeeding, etc. So that's always been a passion area of mine, and I've always sort of when I want to learn something about, I just dig into it and just dive in and learn as much as I can. And then so I was in the magnesium advocacy group. Christiane had introduced me to it because we were good friends from before that, and then I got pregnant with my 5th child, and I had 3 home births. I'd had 1 birth center birth. I was expecting another easy home birth, and then I was battling the whole low iron thing again, because that had always been an issue in my pregnancies. And just, I thought that was going to be my biggest problem. And then I got diagnosed with cholestasis, which is where your liver isn't functioning properly and it becomes a high-risk pregnancy.
Right.
So for me, that was, I started to really get serious about thinking, okay, because I'd been taking magnesium, and I hadn't really delved into a lot. I'd done a few things at that time, the RCP. So this was 2015, early 2015. So the RCP was kind of being formulated that year. So there was kind of recommendations about different whole food things to do. So I'd been doing a few of those, but I really went, okay, I'm going to try and do this, because then the doctors were telling me I need to take this medication, which I started, which made me feel sick. This isn't for me. I'm not going to take this. And I thought, well, if I'm going to give my body the best chance of fighting this, I need to clean everything up. So that's what I did. I pretty much ate pretty much a completely clean ancestral diet, that was focusing on liver cleansing foods, but also good for pregnancy because obviously you've got to meet certain nutritional requirements. And I started taking different recommendations from the RCP that were kind of in place at the time. Plus I did some herbal support as well. So I did sort of a few different approaches with, because what I knew at the time, I was like, I just got to give this everything it's got. And then within 4 weeks, my liver enzymes were like dropping, like, so they're really elevated and they started coming down. And then the bile acid marker, which is what they use to diagnose you, had gone back below normal. And the doctors, they're looking at my results going, what are you doing? And so that was, for me, I saw it work in my life. Like I got more energy. I started to feel better. And I got to, most people have to get induced with cholestasis. And I managed to push through that and get to 39+6 and go into labor naturally. And so I had a big fight on my hands in terms of the hospital system and the approach they wanted to take versus the approach I wanted to take. So and so that was for me. I just went, this makes sense. This is the only thing. And it started to improve my iron levels. Nothing else had ever done that in any other pregnancy. And I'd had an iron infusion in my 3rd pregnancy, which no doubt was kind of what, when you sort of look back and start to look at the stress and everything I'd been doing, I'm like, I can see how this unfolded. Like, this makes sense now. And so that was really what got me intrigued in it. And I'd always had an interest in, I wouldn't say medicine, but the kind of health world. And becoming a doctor was one thing I actually had considered when I left school. And just through the path I ended up taking, I didn't end up going that way. I ended up doing engineering instead, which, it was just a different path. But I had a few things, it was, when you finish school, you're like, I don't know what I want to do. And but I mean, I'm kind of glad I didn't do medicine now as it is, because it's not for me. But I love this, that you can actually help people. I think what I love most about it is that it empowers people to take control of their health. You can give them the tools and empower them to actually, make a difference in their lives and their families' lives.
And advocate for those things as well, because as you said, it's not necessarily totally perfectly aligned with what the mainstream medical system will suggest that you do. So,
absolutely.
And I think that when you are going to do that, and there's a lot of I've got a beautiful circle of friends that are in home birthing and lactation consultants, and I've got there's a lot of people in that kind of space in my world. And when I hear them talking about, and VBAC mentors, like someone who's had a cesarean who then wants to have that vaginal birth after cesarean, I'll get it out. That's what VBAC stands for. Seeing these conversations from friends online and things like that about advocating for themselves and doing what they know and what they feel is best is so important. And I love that you've touched on that, because we actually have, funnily enough, I've put it into the comments here, we've got a RCP babies and children webinar coming up in January, which Jacqui giving us a perfect segue for. So I've popped a little link in there to sign up for. It's a free webinar. If that interests you, and I know that it's going to be a very popular topic, I suspect that lots of people are interested in the RCP lens on children, babies, pregnancy. I think that's going to be a really juicy subject. So that'll be in the new year. And a little note, I'm just going to digress for a second, Jacqui.
That's right.
With our webinar sign-up process, a little note is that if you've already signed up and you go to sign up again, and that's highly likely because it's about another month until the webinar is actually going to take place, because everyone takes a break in December from the facilitation team, I suppose. So Molly and Christiane are having a break in December. I'm clearly still here. Jackie's clearly still here. But they're having a break, and a well-deserved break, because the RCP world is very full during the year, especially with 2 intakes of the Institute. But the sign up for the January webinar is there because of the absence of the December one. So we wanted to just make sure we gave the avid followers something to look forward to, because there's not a webinar happening in December. So if you do sign up and you try to sign up again, you'll get an error message. So rest assured, if that happens and everything else is fine, you've probably just already signed up. And if you need to, just go and check your confirmation emails, do a little search in your inbox and just check you've probably already done that.
Yeah.
Because it does cause a little bit of in our customer service inbox. There's a lot of like, I can't seem to sign up. And I've recently just switched to Kartra as well myself in my business. And Kartra is it's the platform, that's the platform that's doing that. And yeah, it's got its quirks, but it's pretty effective in lots of other ways.
I still do that almost every month. I think I haven't signed up for the webinar, and then I get the message. I go, oh, that's right, I must have signed up.
Yeah. Oops, my bad. Yeah. So I've done myself as well. I can't remember if I've done this or not. I'll just check. And then, it does worry a lot of people though. So I just want anyone who might be watching this, put your minds at ease to know that if you get that error message, the pretty high chance that you have already signed up. And if you want to be 100% sure, then I think checking your inbox for that confirmation email is the way to go. So a little side bubble, but important nonetheless, because it's a little segue.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your story and how you found the RCP as well. I think it's really nice to see how, and as we've mentioned, so many different people find it and end up in the I think there's concentric circles, there's the facilitator team, which is kind of like Morley, Christian, and then there's the team of you guys, like the tutors, and there's so many people in these circles, I can't possibly list them all, but then the community, and then the bigger community as a whole is we're in the hundreds of thousands. There's so many people in this RCP following world, which is very exciting. So it's nice to kind of pluck a few of you out and hear a little bit about you, because there's so many really wonderful stories and things to kind of, I don't know, connect with. I think it's important. Like, how did they get here, and how did Jacqui end up as a tutorial? Like, what was her journey? What was her story? What was
it's probably a good time to do a plug for Amy's interviews on YouTube.
Well, do you want to have you done one, Jacqui? Tell us a little bit about what
I've expanded a bit. I pretty much said in really short summary what I expanded on with the interview with Amy. But Amy's been doing interviews with a lot of RCPCs, just talking to them about their journey, how they came to the RCP. So it's just a really good way to get to know consultants. So if you're looking for a consultant and wanting to know a bit more about them on the YouTube channel, there's a whole bunch of interviews to work through.
Heaps. So I make sure when I put together the newsletters for the RCP, there's always at least one, maybe sometimes three of those interviews in there, because there's always people looking for consultants, and you can go to the website. But I feel like, if I put myself in those shoes and I'm looking, like, I've discovered the RCP, a friend of a friend's recommended it, and I've gone looking and I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. Found the magnesium advocacy group, kind of like you described earlier. And I was like, oh, I'm looking for someone who I would go with. Sometimes I need a little bit more, like to like, who's the right person for me when there's a whole suite of people to connect with. Like, I went and had, just of all things, a waxing service just recently. And I could choose which of the like practitioners or therapists, I think is the correct word, which one did I want? And there was such and such's name in a photo, and then such and such's name in a photo, and then another lady's name in a photo. And then it also said that she's a holistic practitioner and she does a little bit of energy and intuitive work. And I was like, I want her, tick. Like, it was the tiniest little bit of information, but it made such a difference to my decision. So we've kind of taken that principle, and the concept has been, I guess, expanded quite a bit with Amy to come and interview any of the RCPCs. It's totally voluntary, so we're not forcing them, but anyone who wants to come and share their story and talk a little bit about their journey, as Jacqui has in a bite-sized version today, it just helps you to connect, because there are so many different stories. And so if you are an RCPC and you haven't done that, Amy's always looking for people to come and step forward, volunteering to share their story. But I think it's important, because the folks who are following the RCP and those who are certainly new to it can relate. There's that relatability aspect, and that's really important, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. So good. Is there anything else that you'd like to share about your story or anything like that before we wrap up with one final question, Jacqui?
No, we're good.
All good. So because the doors for enrolments are currently open for the RCP
Mhm.
Institute, and Jacqui is one of our fabulous tutors. We have a massive team of amazing tutors. Jacqui is just one of those. Because we are in enrolment open phase, like I imagine it as like the doors have been flung open and you can come on in for twice a year. It only happens twice a year. It's like Christmas times 2 almost for those who celebrate Christmas, right? It's like a big special event. So because enrolments are open at the moment, and it is only a twice a year kind of thing, it's a big deal. If there was people who were out there, maybe they were on the fence or they were watching, or a friend told them about the RCP and they've somehow stumbled across this conversation with you and I today, what is it that you would want them to know? Now, I haven't prepared Jacqui in any way or told her that I was asking her this question at all. So I put her on the spot, but imagine that there's someone who might stumble across this. What is it that you would like to say to those people? Because we don't need to talk to the RCPCs. They're already converted. They know, they're already on board with the message. But someone who might be a little bit more new, what would you say to them?
I would say that there's a lot. There's a lot, I would say. I would say question. Jump in.
You've got 5 minutes if you need it.
Jump in early, because there's a lot of pre-work that you can do. And the more that you get a handle on that, it just gives you the confidence to kind of hit the ground running. So just getting familiar with the forum, familiar with Kartra. You don't want to be doing that once the course starts. You kind of really want to sort of, find your sea legs, really, so to speak. And also, I mean, the course is, some people can get overwhelmed because there's a lot. There's a lot in the course. Okay, so we have live classes each week. We have a recorded class, we have tutorials, we have articles to read, but we also help you to manage that and to break it down, so you don't have to, we help you to prioritize. So if you can't, we don't necessarily expect everyone to do all the articles or but it's there and there's layers, and the material's also available. This is a really important point, I think, for people to know, is that the material's there for you once you finish. So you're not going to lose access to the course once the course finishes. You get to come back in at your leisure. You can go through and rewatch all the classes again. You can watch all the live classes again. You can rewatch all the tutorials again if you want. There's a lot of layers to the learning, and so don't be intimidated by that, because you'll get something in your first round through. And I found this when I retook the training as well. I learned a lot in my first round through, and then as I retook it, I went deeper, and then as I've tutored, even each time I learned there's new deeper layers to the learning, so which I think also makes it super valuable, a super valuable course, because it's not like a one and done deal. It's something you can keep kind of relearning and delving into, and there's definitely enough material there for you, especially even with the live, the recorded classes, all the references. You could spend a lot of time digging in and reading, and so and you'll absolutely get your money's worth without hesitation. But I would just say that. So don't be intimidated by them, by thinking of even worrying about if you've got time to do it. I mean, if you can commit to the recorded class, live class, and tutorial session, then you'll get through the course just fine. And and we there's a simple quiz each week. It's not a massive onerous process. It's just to help you reinforce your learning. It's not even a really long quiz. I think there's 10 questions. And then there's the one intro consult assessment. So it's regular, it's consistent. We do expect the quizzes to be done each week, but it's not a really heavy workload in that sort of sense. But it's a consistent workload. There is material to work through each week. So you would have to set aside, I reckon, probably about 10 hours a week to get through it. So but I've had people working full time, and then just by prioritizing work each week, they've gotten through it. And it's it's been fine. So.
Yeah, there's so many productivity hacks out there to maximize our time, and to, we've all got the same amount of time, and some people sleep more and some people sleep less, but in terms of the priorities, everybody's different. But there's so many things that you can do, because there are recorded lessons, sitting there, like if you're zipping down to the supermarket, you can press record on your phone before you start driving, because safety is important. And you can listen to like 10 minutes of it in a little bite-sized chunk that's really manageable. You've then also got to get back home from the supermarket. So there's another 10 minutes. Like there are so many ways to do it that don't involve this idea of, and you know, the last couple of years have seen a lot of us working from home in these sorts of environments. I'm doing this because I'm in my home office, but I've worked from home on Zoom since 2016. So it's not a new thing for me, but there's a lot of people who have maybe sat at dining tables in less than ideal places to be on a computer or a device, but it doesn't have to be that way. You know, there are so many things that you can do. You can attend things in lots of different ways. So, and I hope that that is what the world is starting to encourage now that we're sort of, you know, re-emerging and things can be different. So I love consuming a little bit of information or a podcast or an audiobook or something for on a quick little drive, you know. It's really easy. My mind is otherwise occupied on the basics of the driving, and then the rest of it can be, you know, used to consume information. I find it really helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we do transcripts for all the recorded classes and for the live classes after the fact. So there's ways for you to, you know, go back, and some people are, you know, trying to cover all those different learning styles as well. So
absolutely. Yeah, because we've got all sorts of different people as well. And, you know, one of the trainees who came through the very first intake, who is also on the team now, she uses transcripts quite a lot. She has her hearing, but it is impacted. And so the transcripts make things so much more accessible as well for, you know, different learning styles, but also different capacities as well and different abilities. So we do our best to make it as accessible as possible. Yeah. Amazing. Anything else that you want to say to this imaginary person who might be sitting on the sidelines, Jacqui?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, good. I think you've covered a lot of ground in that last couple of minutes, which I think is really important and really helpful. So thank you for that. And thank you for being here and showing up and hanging out with me for a half hour to kind of chat all things RCP. And it's, my dog's just gotten up and he's all very excited. He's like, it sounds like they're done. I'm getting out. He was snoozing that whole time. You can tell the tone of voice that's changed.
He must know the words you're saying.
Yeah, he does. He must. He's very smart. And now he's rolling around on the carpet. Hopefully you can't hear him. He's like,
no, it's all good.
Doing these sounds. Well, thank you again, Jacqui. It's always a pleasure to hang out with anybody in the RCP community, but it's nice to hang out with a fellow Australian. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And for those of you who are live or listening back on the replay, because we know that there's quite a few of you who do catch it later, whether it's live on Facebook here or on YouTube, which is where it will be momentarily. Thank you for being here. It's always a pleasure. If I can find a volunteer for next week, I know it's for those who celebrate Christmas, it's the week before Christmas. If I can find a volunteer, I'll have one come and join me. If not, otherwise we'll see you in the new year. And thank you everybody for being here. Thanks, Jacqui.
Thanks, Shanae.
Bye for now.